Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Broadband Universe podcast. I'm Craig Corbin, and it is a pleasure to welcome today's guest, Mr. Tim Buffkin, National Sales Manager for Broadband for Incab America. Tim, welcome to the Broadband Universe.
Hey, Craig, good to see you again. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We had a chance to visit at the inaugural Connected America event recently in Dallas. It was quite a show. We'll talk about that a bit later, but to set the stage, want to sort of give that 30,000-foot overview. I know that Incab is one of the largest manufacturers of the world's finest fiber optic cables, and quite a range of different cables. Give us that overview, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So Incab America, we're a part of a group called ICG that's based out of Europe. But Incab America, we got started about 5 years ago. Called a spin-off, if you will, or a creation from an OPGW manufacturer that left the U.S. market. So Mike Riddle, who's our president, he was with Incab running North America for them. The company decided to leave the U.S. market altogether, which led to Mike getting with ICG and this creating Incab America about 5 years ago. So we started out manufacturing OPGW stateside, and then about 3 years ago we brought in a dielectric extrusion line that allowed us to start getting into doing black jacket cabling, ADSS cables. So I came along to focus on rural broadband deployments across the country. Then obviously with the equipment we had lending more towards the ADSS side, a lot more of a focus on the utility broadband deployments. But obviously as the market's expanded and we've grown as a company, starting to expand out away from, focusing more on the utilities to getting more into the traditional telcos, your tier 2, tier 3 service providers from that standpoint. So basically manufacture any and all types of fiber optic cables, and we've got a part of our group of companies based out of Germany is called Wires and Bytes. They actually manufacture fiber optic sensing cables. So it's very very cool set of cables. Used in mining and oil. These are cables that can pick up vibrations in the ground, right? Different changes in the environment, and go back to the equipment and say, hey, you've got even security for an electric substation. Hey, you have a vehicle pulling up to a substation. Hey, there's 3 people walking around your substation. Very, very wide range of product. But definitely the broadband and utility broadband specifically for me is a big focus.
Interesting. When we talk about the ADSS, the all dielectric self-supporting cabling, obviously this is a time in the industry, the broadband industry, where there is a demand and a large demand for that. Talk about how that's evolved in your time with Incab America.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, right? I mean, everybody sees what's going on in the market, right? Tons of federal funding coming in. And then, really when you get into the rural broadband side of things, of course, right, it's a lot more challenging, a lot more difficult for call it a traditional cable company who are answering to stakeholders, shareholders to go out into an area that has 5 homes per mile. So of course, right, an electric utility, they've got a lot of the infrastructure in place to make these builds a lot more feasible. Huge, and especially in the Southeast, right? I mean, per capita in the Southeast, you probably have more electric cooperatives doing fiber to the home than you do in the rest of the country. The big decision really then is, going back to the ADSS side is, do they go with ADSS and stay up in the neutral and above the neutral in the power zone, or do they drop down, go into the comm space, go with a more traditional, what I would call your traditional telco style and go strand and lash? You've really kind of seen a lot more of an emergence of the strand and lash approach to building fiber. And a lot of that is really because you have obviously a lot of telco and more, again, the traditional telco side coming over to help a lot of these builds with these electric cooperatives. Now that topic lends itself into its whole a whole nother discussion on right. ADSS versus strand and lash. But
sure.
Again, right at the end of the day, you have electric cooperatives that have they've got their bucket of money that they need to spend, and it's about getting their network up as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible.
When you talk about a self-supporting cable versus the strand and lash that you talk about. What are you beginning to see as far as trends in that regard?
Yeah, so it's one of those things that's there's not a I call it there's not a right or a wrong way to do fiber to the home, right? I mean, you've got, again, just in the cable selection, tons of different ways to go. I am seeing that there are a lot of utilities, I think, that maybe didn't fully do a lot of homework up front on the decision just on ADSS versus strand and lash, right? I had a conversation with, it was two utilities. I was at a show last year out west, and I did a fiber to the home 101 presentation. I had two guys come up with me, and they were like, would have been really nice if y'all could have had this conversation with us before, because we got talked into going strand and lash. We were given, hey, it's X amount of dollars per feet to deploy. I'm like, hey, yeah, that number sounds great. However, the number that got left out were the make ready cost.
Right.
And that's changing out poles, right? Putting in taller poles, stronger poles, adding more poles because the spans are too long. And in the case of this one electric cooperative, they had a grant for $8 million to contribute towards their fiber to the home build. They spent every bit of it on make ready.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're again, you've got your bucket of money to spend from, and if you spend $8 million before you've even put up one string of fiber, yeah, you're starting in the whole $8 million and can't even connect one customer yet. Yeah. So I think that's just why, especially on the on the utility side, because again, they're not broadband guys, they're not fiber to the home guys. I think it's education is a big thing in that market, and and I think sometimes unfortunately it might be lacking for the sake of trying to push an easy button, so to speak.
Well, and that you bring up a great point when you talk about education and the proper consulting with organizations that are looking to get into the business, because just as you mentioned a moment ago, those initial decisions have far-reaching implications as far as the business plan goes, and I know that that's a big part of what you and your team are involved in, as far as making sure that your clients, your customers, have the information they need to make the best possible decision, and that's something that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, 100%, and we do a monthly webinar on wide arrays of topics, and for us, we're not getting up there and we're not trying to do an Incab sales pitch, right? It's, hey, here's some topics about ADSS, right? Here's just we're just sharing our knowledge, and yeah, you're right. I think it's really important, and what I try to stress to to utilities that I'm talking to is, look, I sell cable. You tell me you want to buy cable one, I'll sell you cable one. If you want to buy cable two, I'll sell you cable two. At the end of the day, right, it's not going to affect me. However, yeah, if I can help them out in any way and help, whether it's showing them numbers, showing them different architectures of GPON, right, things that might help them, it's only going to help them in the long run. And honestly, the companies that I've seen have the most success, you either have somebody at the utility that is decided just to jump headfirst into this, and they go to the Connected Americas and the different trade shows and just talk to all the sales guys trying to sell their widget or whatever it is, and say, hey, why does this work this way? Why does this work that way? And then that way, if a consulting firm comes in and says, oh, hey, this is the best way to do it, they can go, well, hold on, what about this? Right, and then when they can start pushing back and really digging down, those are the guys that are become very successful. Or in some cases, you see a utility go hire a telco person to come run their deployment. They'll still work with the consulting, but now they've got somebody in there with 20 years of experience of building fiber, and then now you've got somebody that can actually question, instead of just saying, somebody coming in and saying, oh yeah, hey, we build like this everywhere, and this is hands down the best way to do it. It's going to work for you, Mr. Co-op, that has 10,000 meters, just like it's going to work for the co-op with 220,000 meters in an urban setting, right? So yeah, that's yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, that's what I want to do. Obviously, I'm a sales guy. I want to sell cable, but again, I want to at least try to lend some knowledge and make myself valuable outside of just again providing a cable.
And help them with the challenges that come along with making that decision. You're watching the Broadband Universe podcast, brought to you by Lit Communities. Light up your community. You deserve better internet. By Vetro Fiber Map, radically simpler fiber management. And by Vitruvi, built faster, reduce costs, and improve quality. My guest today, Tim Buffkin, National Sales Manager, Broadband for Incab America. And Tim, when we talk about topics with respect to cabling, there is a trend now, sort of the micro cable trend that is really becoming an interesting alternative. Talk about that from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's no matter who you are, right? If you're a rural telephone company, a traditional telco, right, a tier one, or even or a small utility, municipality, electric, cooperative building fiber to the home, you're going to have cable underground, and what you're starting to see now is I think a lot of people are understanding that from a construction standpoint, I'm going to spend money putting cable in the ground. A bulk of what I'm going to spend is going to be on the labor side of things. And then you get into the part of, and again, kind of going the education of what is my network going to look like 30 years down the road. And so now you've got, again, the micro cable, right? Much smaller diameter cable. You can put it into a duct bank of, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 micro ducts that, one, allows for network expansion down the road. Two, allows for much easier fixing of cuts and things like that. Again, having to pull the cable out and blow it back through. So when you look at the total cost of ownership from a cost standpoint, while a lot of people used to maybe look at the cost of a blowing machine, the time for the initial setup, things like that. I think a lot of people are starting to understand the total cost of ownership over the course of your network being 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And the other important side of it too is with the growth of 5G, right? And then let's say whatever's after 5G. Obviously, with 5G, you need more towers. You need fiber to all those towers. And so, if you're a rural broadband supplier or your utility, if you're going to be putting duct running down the side of the road, at that point, spend the exact same money on the labor, you get a multiple duct bank. So now, let's say, again, right, trying to predict the future, but maybe 5 years down the road, a Verizon, a T-Mobile comes by and says, hey, we'd love to put 5G in this area. Can you help us out with that? Well, if you've only put a single duct bank and a single fiber in there, and then let's say you went skinny on the fiber, only did something like a 12 count,
right,
to go and try to deploy 5G in your area, you're going to have to repeat those costs all over again versus planning ahead. And just putting that multi-duct bank, say, sure, we can either lease you the duct bank, or we'll go blow a fiber through there and we'll lease you the fiber. So again, I think from really just mainly from an expansion and being able to do more stuff down the road, it lends itself a lot more to be able to manage that network long term. And I think it's funny kind of going back to the education side of thing. It's still definitely it's a growing concept, right? It's still for the U.S. It's still very much a newer product.
Sure.
And so I think you've in a couple instances I've seen kind of people being, oh, hey, like I've been told jetting cabling is the way to go. So they go buy a blowing machine, and in one case I saw somebody trying to jet in armored cable through some small pedestals. Didn't get as far as they thought. They're like, yeah, it's only going a few loops through a pedestal, and it's like, well. We could have saved you some money on the cable,
right,
saved you some money on the duct, and instead of getting through 3 or 4 pedestals, you could have gotten through 15,
right,
and really sped up the deployment. But again, it's just again, future proofing the network is what you want to look for, because again, it's you're spending 20, 30, 40, 50 million plus dollars, whatever it is. At that point, spending a couple extra percent on the total build to give yourself a future-proof network, it makes so much more sense. And microfiber, it just lends itself to that so much more easily.
Well, and a couple of things that you mentioned I think are very key. When you talk about future-proofing and flexibility of expansion, those are key concepts that make a big difference in how a network can expand their footprint. down the line. And so it will be interesting to see how that develops. I am curious, when we talk about looking at the technology and the constant change, and as soon as 5G was a common terminology, then we were looking at the next thing down the road. From your perspective in your industry, how do you anticipate that the cabling industry will respond to the constant evolution in the broadband world?
Yeah, so going back, right? I mean, I think the micro cable technology. I mean, I think that's obviously one step that's there. We're really, even if you just go down and you bury down into the glass itself, and compare the quality and the consistency of the glass that we use now compared to 15, 20 years ago, right? So, for example, we use Corning glass in all of our product. Mm-hmm. And and we test every single fiber that ships out. We go and we test every single one, and we haven't had a bad strand of fiber. In honestly, I don't even know if we've had it since Incab America has been here, because
nice.
the quality is just that good.
Nice.
So. I think from that standpoint, the technology side of it's going to be more on what I call the blinking lights, right? I'm an outside plant guy. I understand GPON and splitters, but you get into the actual what's sending the light. That starts getting out of my realm of expertise. Right. But again, that's where the most room for growth is. Because now obviously in a GPON architecture. In a rural area, you're usually a 1x16 or a 1x32 split. But I think there's the potential down the road of where you could only get away with a 1x16. You could potentially bump up to a 1x32 or even a 1x64. So I think that to me is going to be the really kind of exciting thing to watch down the road. Because realistically, we technically don't know what the limit of the glass itself is. But again, that also brings up unique challenges, and we talked about future proofing. So if I'm a utility and I'm trying to put a network out there, I'm thinking about a 144. Do I go ahead and do a 288 just in case, or will the technology 10 years down the road basically make the 144 of today the equivalent of a 432?
Right. And on the topic of challenges. Obviously the capacity for production is of interest. And I know that in looking at the website, I think the production on average 4,000 miles of cable a month. That's a lot of cable, Tim.
Yeah, it is. And we've even, just from the, our own growth, of course, we started out and, we were the new players in the market, right? People, if you, went up to any telco and said, hey, rattle off 5 fiber optic cable manufacturers, none of them were going to mention us, right? So just from being around, we've been able to grow a ton, and we've started making a great name for ourselves. But then obviously the demand has grown to a point to where it can support more competition, right? It can easily support another provider. But because of that, even too, we've been forced to grow our facility. We had already expanded once. And now we're in the process of moving into a building that's essentially going to more than double our production space. And we've got new equipment coming in, and so that number, for the short time is going to be closer to 6 million. Or 6 million feet. And so, but that again is going to grow very quickly because we're looking at the next equipment we need to bring in. And luckily, looking at just the industry as a whole, these are problems that everybody's running into, right? I mean, we're nowhere near the size of a Corning Cable Systems, but even they've been constrained on their production capacity, which has led them to also put money into expanding facilities. Sure. And then even outside of the cable industry itself, you're seeing that with vault manufacturers, splice enclosure manufacturers. So it's, while, and, we look at the BEAD funding and, the $43 billion in BEAD funding, I think there's definitely is still very much a potential of getting to a point where we had those 50, 60 week lead times. I think that's a very real possibility. Obviously, the hope is that, all this expansion and the growth from a production standpoint help support a lot more of that demand, because I think, we're probably looking at a 6 to 8 year just full on boom from a usage standpoint. So, we're obviously doing our part to try to keep up with it as much as possible and continue to get that output higher and higher, as quickly as possible. But yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, if I'm a user, if I'm an ISP right now, or I'm somebody looking to start a fiber build, I'm really trying to look at locking down, a couple manufacturers. Yeah. And again, right, whether it's cable, handholds, pedestals, I'm really trying to lock down some kind of a capacity agreement, because while, we are in a little bit of a dip from a lead time standpoint, again, last thing you want to do is be a year down the road, all of a sudden lead times jump from 30 to 60 weeks in a 2-week span.
And then you're stuck.
And you're stuck.
Yeah. Then you're stuck. So this is amazing. So much to talk about. As we begin to wind down the visit, I'm always curious about projections and looking to the future. So I'll ask the traditional crystal ball question. Where do you see both Incab America and the industry in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, kind of piggybacking off the previous point, we're in 100% growth mode. It's new equipment, it's expanding the buildings, and I think that's going to be, for us, especially the continued theme for the next 5 years. Just because, again, I think the demand is going to be there. And again, I think from the market standpoint, I think we're going to continue to see that growth again. The rural broadband build outs, the expansion of 5G, and even to overbuilds, right? ISPs that have already built out their network, but again, maybe 10 years ago went too skinny on their fiber count, or they're upgrading to an XGS PON, right? So now they're going to go and lay more fiber on top of that. So yeah, and I think we're going to be it's going to be a really interesting, obviously high growth, but I think almost a delicate situation over the next 5 years, and that's not even touching on the labor side of things. Yeah. I heard one projection was that the industry is going to need in the realm of hundreds of thousands of splicers to support all of this funding and all of this growth. So
tremendous.
If the cable industry can keep up with the product demand, you still have to have people to splice it. So that's going to be the interesting thing. And like I say, 10 years down the road, Incab's going to be a household name. At least that's my goal.
I love it.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm in it to grow the company, and we have a great company. I enjoy working for them, and I want, when people, reach out to their distributor partner and say, hey, I need to get a quote on some cable. Yeah, sure. Who do you want to quote from? I want Incab to be one of the companies that rolls off their tongue, like a Corning Cable Systems, right? With the industry in 10 years, I think that's much more of an unknown, right? Because again, now we've got so much federal and state funding flooding the market, right? Obviously, that's not going to go on forever. And then, once the country is more saturated with quality fiber to the home networks, then of course eventually you see a shift more to maintenance mode, not as much building out, things like that. So, then what does that mean for, again, right, all of the companies that have spent, so much money expanding their operations, right? Where does that say? I think that's kind of the 10-year mark to me is more of the question mark on how everything shifts and where everything goes towards. And again, who knows where the technology is going to be then?
Time will tell. Time will tell. Well, this has been a great visit. I appreciate your time. So wonderful to learn about Incab America, the work that's going on, and wish you and the Incab America team the very best, and look forward to checking in down the road just to see what kind of growth has been going on. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on. It was fantastic talking to you at Connected America and again today. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. On behalf of Tim, thanks for letting us be a part of your day. We'll see you next time right here on the Broadband Universe. So long, everyone.